Unexplained and Sinister. 7 terrifying rules every new Yellowstone ranger must never break. The sun began to dip behind the jagged peaks of Yellowstone as Sarah Jenkins stepped into the ranger station, her heart racing with excitement and unease. She had dreamt of this moment, to escape her financially strapped hometown, to honor her father's memory, but the foreboding whispers about the 7 rules echoed ominously in her mind. They can't be that bad, she thought, trying to shake off the chill creeping down her spine. Everything felt different here, the pine-scented air, the stunning vistas shrouded in twilight, even the distant call of wildlife. Yet uncanny sounds entwined with the gentle rustle of leaves. At dusk, eerie howls reverberated through the trees, sounding not just like wolves but something other. What was that? She shuddered, glancing around as shadows danced ominously at the edges of her vision. But the real fear hit when she heard her colleagues mutter about Jason. Just last night, he had recited the dreaded 6th rule aloud during their patrol, laughing it off. Now he was gone, vanished without a trace. The mood in the station shifted, trust evaporated like morning mist. Sarah felt an unsettling knot form in her stomach. "Don't go near Old Faithful at night," one ranger cautioned in a hushed tone. "You don't want to meet what lurks there." His words dripped with a foreboding weight. As she absorbed their warnings, the symbols carved into the bark of ancient trees began to spell out a darker truth. Could they truly be a warning? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah dug deeper, the park's lore unfolded long hidden secrets. The stories were monstrous. She discovered hints of a ranger revered as a protector, but whose legacy was tangled in fear. The deeper she went, the more the ground felt unsteady beneath her feet. Every rustle, every whisper of wind seemed like a voice, telling her to stop. But she couldn't. Jason's absence became an obsession, compounded by the unnerving howls echoing late into the night. She felt eyes watching her from the darkened tree line. Sarah started to suspect even her fellow rangers, those who had laughed with her, were now cold, distant, and snared in secrets she hadn't yet grasped. Just then, as she scanned the forest, a loud snap echoed through the trees, as if something or someone had crossed her path. A shadow darted between the trunks. Her heart pounded, panic gripping her throat like a vice. As the shadows converged, Sarah froze. Could she trust Carlos, the ranger who had welcomed her? Was he hiding something sinister beneath his genial facade? Suddenly the ground shook, and in the quaking silence, the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches curling like fingers. A haunting command echoed in her mind. You must choose. The darkness closed in, suffocating, and Sarah realized with a jolt she was standing on the edge of something terrifying. Would she confront the hidden horrors of Yellowstone or flee from the pulsing dread? Choices loomed, and time was running out. The night enveloped Sarah, thick and heavy, like a suffocating blanket. She felt paralyzed by the crisp air, tinged with the scent of earth and decay. The shadows that once flitted in the corners of her vision now seemed to materialize into sinister figures, watching, waiting. Fear began to gnaw at her mind, an insatiable hunger that darkened her thoughts. Get it together, she whispered to herself, but the words were barely a pittance in the face of palpable dread. The forest shifted around her, trees swaying as if aware of her unease, almost mocking it. Every snap of a twig shot adrenaline through her veins. The 7 rules, the stories, they hung in her mind, a tangled web of warning. Jason's disappearance churned in her thoughts, turning her stomach to knots. She glanced around, searching for Carlos, longing for the comfort of familiarity. Instead, all she saw were encroaching shadows, twisting in the darkness, ready to swallow her whole. He had taken her under his wing, been so welcoming. The thought that he might be one of them, one of the guarded, the secretive, made her pulse race. What do I do? She thought, desperately needing guidance. nausea bubbled to the surface as another spine-chilling howl erupted from the woods. It wasn't a wolf, it was deeper, more guttural, like something born of nightmares. In her gut she felt that she was at the mercy of forces beyond her comprehension. Then she saw it. A flicker of movement, pale against the backdrop of pitch-black night, darting through the trees. Her breath caught in her throat. With shaky hands she pulled out her flashlight, the beams slicing through the darkness, revealing nothing. Just shadows. Just silence. She caught a glimpse of something, the not-quite-human form slipping behind a tree, too quick to identify. "Carlos!" she yelled, voice trembling. No answer came. Only the creeping rustle of the forest answered her, like whispers promising doom. Panic clawed at her spirit. She was losing control. "You have to leave!" screamed a voice in her mind, but part of her was drawn to the dark, chaotically pulling her toward the unseen. A thud rang out and she turned, catching sight of a massive, hulking silhouette tangled in shadow. Every inch of her screamed to run, but her feet stayed rooted to the earth. The creature stood still, watching. What was it? The eyes glowing like embers in the cold night held her captive. It felt like an eternity as she stood there, transfixed. Suddenly, the ground erupted once more, a tremor shaking the very heart of the forest. The soil beneath her feet buckled, and she stumbled backward. Without thinking, she bolted through the trees, feeling the pull of dread behind her. The branches tore at her uniform like grasping fingers. Not Old Faithful, not Old Faithful echoed in her mind, mingling with the howls. She had to warn them. She had to warn Carlos, and yet the more she ran, the deeper the woods beckoned, the more alive they seemed, thrumming in rhythm to her frantic heartbeat. At last, she burst from the tree-line, reaching the ranger station. The warmth of its light cast an inviting glow amidst the dark chaos surrounding her. But a sense of wrongness tainted the air as she rushed inside, the door slamming behind her. The station felt empty, eerily quiet. Had Jason's fate already caught up to her? "Carlos?" she called, her voice a plea. In the silence that followed, the very air grew heavy. It felt like the ghosts of the woods were spiraling toward her, waiting for her next choice. The lights flickered violently, and in that moment she knew something was coming, something sinister. The flickering lights stuttered, almost as if they were in agony, mimicking her anxious heart. Darkness clawed at the corners where light could not reach. Sarah's breath quickened, every shallow gasp mingling with the oppressive silence that buried the room. She felt the cold creep of panic seize her throat, tightening its grip, making it hard to swallow. "Carlos!" she called again, louder this time, desperation spilling over into her voice. The echo hung in the air, pregnant with dread, but the only reply was a scatter of distant sounds, wood creaking, a soft rustle outside, something prowling. Then she saw it, a vague shadow shifting just beyond the window. Her heart raced, thundering against her ribs like a savage beast. She stumbled back, her shoulder hitting the cold wall. The sight filled her with a chilling realization this place was no sanctuary. It was a cage. As she fought to steady herself, she remembered the stories. The 7 rules etched in her mind like a scar. Rule number 1: always stay with your partner. It was the one rule she had failed to keep. Carlos wasn't here. Fear tightened its grip as panic bubbled over. What if he was lost? Or worse, what if he had become one of them? Her thoughts spiraled. The door rattled, and a low growl rippled through the air, resonating with a hateful urgency. No longer just a whisper of the woods, but a voice of unspeakable terror. Sarah whirled around to face the source. The windows trembled under the weight of something massive. "Please, Carlos! If that's you," she whispered, but there was no way to disguise the tremor in her voice. She edged toward the desk, her hands trembling as they grasped the cold metal of a drawer. The feeling of being hunted seeped into her bones, and with it came a sense of determination. She needed to defend herself, to find Carlos whatever it took. Suddenly, one of the windows exploded inward, showering the small room with glass and branches. A dark figure loomed in the shattered opening, its silhouette blending with the night, eyes blazing like coals. It growled, deep and thunderous. Sarah's heart sank as the creature's elongated form pushed through the wreckage, its movements predatory. With every instinct screaming at her to run, she snatched a flashlight from the desk and swung it toward the creature. Its pale, twisted face recoiled momentarily as the beam struck, revealing a gnarled mouth and jagged teeth, dripping with something wet and glistening. It was a face born of nightmares. She darted to the back of the station, trying to push her despair aside as her mind raced for options. The emergency exit. If she could reach it, if she could find help, her thoughts jolted back to the rules she had tried to forget. Rule number 4: do not enter the woods alone after dark. But what choice did she have? Just then, the creature lunged, snapping its maw inches from her as she dove through the side door. Stumbling into the dark, she could hear it crashing through the station behind her, shrieked barks echoing into the stillness of the night. She ran, heart hammering, thoughts frenzied. Amidst the panic, a chilling realization struck her. Each rule had been a warning, and breaking them came at terrible prices. What lay hidden in the heart of the forest was more than just creatures. It was a curse, a twisted story unfolding. As she tore through the trees, her flashlight bobbing up and down, a new howl split the night, a mournful, haunting wail. It was different from the others. Recognition shot through her gut, freezing her steps. The sound of Jason. Not Jason! She screamed into the void, the darkness swallowing her words. But who would she listen to now? The fading echoes of the past twisted horrifically in the present. With no choice left, she plunged deeper into the forest, the ground beneath her feet slick and treacherous. As the howls intensified and shadows danced ominously around her, she felt the unseen eyes watching, waiting for her to falter. What horrors awaited her next as she pursued the sound echoing her worst fears? Was she too late to save anyone, including herself? The forest was alive with twisted sounds, each step Sarah took sending a ripple of dread through her body. Every crack of a branch felt like the whisper of the creatures that hunted her, their sharp breaths brushing against her skin. She clutched the flashlight tightly as the beam darted through the trees, revealing jagged shadows that danced before her eyes, elusive specters woven into the fabric of night. "Jason!" She called out again, her voice a thin thread amidst the cacophony of haunted howls and rustling leaves. It was a desperate plea, a threadbare hope. Each name pulled at her heart, connecting her to the fabric of her lost friends, but as she called, the woods responded with a cruel silence. Then came another howl, this one drawing nearer, low and guttural, echoing through the gnarled trees like the wailing of a forgotten soul. Panic surged anew, feeding off her earlier dread. "They're all gone," she thought, an icy shard driving deep into her consciousness. As she stumbled deeper into the suffocating darkness, her flashlight flickered, its beam weakening. She flicked the switch frantically, but the light only stuttered, threatening to plunge her into an abyss. Her breath came in gasps, each inhale mingling fear with the stale scent of damp earth. The moment of darkness was unbearable. She could hear it, the soft padding of something large moving through the brush, following her. Instinct kicked in, and she forced herself into a sprint. Branches tore at her clothes, clawing and snagging, but she pressed on, the knowledge of the rules echoing in her mind: stay calm. Don't panic. Rule number 7: never run unless you can see. Yet here she was, blind and fleeing. The darkness seemed to come alive, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She could feel the weight of eyes waiting just out of sight, hungry and patient, as if they relished the hunt. A sudden scream ripped through the stillness, a sound both agonizing and familiar. Sarah halted, her heart dropping. "Carlos!" she shouted, but the echoes of her voice were swallowed whole by the woods. The howl of the creature reverberated again, this time sharper, as if taunting her. "What happened to you?" she whispered into the black, her hands shaking. Could it be that they were right? Had Carlos succumbed, lost to whatever lurked in the shadows? With determination igniting in her chest, Sarah pressed forward, ignoring the tightening in her throat. The howling faded momentarily, but the unnatural silence that emerged felt heavier than before, and in the stillness, panic threatened to drown her in despair. Just then, the flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating a path tangled with thorny brambles. As she navigated the treacherous terrain, she stumbled over a half-buried root and fell, crashing hard to the forest floor. Pain jolted through her body, but she pushed herself up, breathing heavily. Gritting her teeth, she turned her light across the ground, sweeping it up toward the trees, and then she froze. There within the beam was something grotesque, a makeshift memorial of pieces that were unmistakably human. A jacket, a shoe, remnants of what once was. Emotionless they appeared against the night, chilling her to the bone. Each item screamed of fragility and finality, a dread confirmation of her worst fears. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered to herself, scrambling back as instinct clawed at her throat. The air thickened, an unseen force weighing heavy on her. It felt as if the very forest were watching, judging her. And then, behind her, a soft whisper carried through the air, almost a caress, like a name long forgotten. "Sarah!" She froze again, the familiar voice curling into her mind, both inviting and terrifying. "Is it really you?" But before she could respond, from the shadows, the creature sprang, a dark streak of fur and glinting eyes locked onto her. Adrenaline surged, and she turned, bolting again. The howl erupted close behind her, weaving through the trees as her instincts screamed. What was waiting for her out there? And did the forest want her to find the truth or become part of the horror she had already seen? "Get away!" she yelled as the darkness loomed ever closer. As she ran, breaking through the underbrush, the night poured into her lungs, and she wondered if salvation lay ahead or if it had long since slipped beyond her reach. Branches whipped at Sarah's face as she sprinted through the night, each step feeling like a gamble with fate. The flashlight flickered once more, a weak pulse of hope amidst the encroaching gloom. Behind her, the creature growled, a low rumble that resonated through the ground and into her bones, each sound enough to drive her deeper into panic. She glanced back, just for a fleeting moment, and the world around her twisted its outstretched jaws, and shadowy forms, full of malice and intent, seemed to emerge from the very earth. A chill snaked down her spine. She could see it now, the outline of the creature, muscles rippling beneath dark, matted fur and eyes glowing like twin orbs of malice. Jason's scream echoed again in her ears, and a fresh wave of adrenaline pushed her forward. "Keep moving!" she scolded herself, voice barely a whisper against the night. It felt like the woods were breathing with her, drawing in her fear, channeling it, making it palpable and alive. She stumbled over a fallen log, her body colliding with the moist ground. Pain shot through her palms as she pushed herself up, heart racing. And there it was again, that whisper, threading through the leaves. Sarah had tugged at something deep inside her, a mix of dread and familiarity. It felt so much like comfort, but she knew better than to chase it. The forest was filled with ghosts, and not all of them were friendly. The voice wasn't just a plea, it was a trap. With every ounce of determination, she lunged forward, breathing heavily, her lungs burning like fire. She focused ahead, nothing else mattered. Just escape. The space around her changed, the trees thinning, the brush becoming sparse. She could almost taste the air thickening with fear, or was it something worse? Once again, the light flickered, threatening to collapse into darkness. Images flashed in her mind, moments of laughter with friends around the campfire, tacos from that roach-filled truck, and Carlos's winning smile as he teased Jason about his movie choices. They were gone now, lost to shadows, silent victims of a forest that seemed intent on claiming her as its next offering. Ahead, the vegetation shifted, revealing a clearing bathed in moonlight. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw them, her friends, laughing, beckoning from the glow. "No!" she screamed, rearing back. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Desperation surged within her, a life vest battling the waves of despair. She felt the ground tremble again. The creature was closing in. Panic clawed at her throat. Should she run back into the trees, the darkness she longed to escape, but held the flicker of life, or chase the haunting vision? Every heartbeat was a countdown. Her mind raced. From the corner of her eye, she glimpsed it, the figure moving among the trees, a familiar silhouette, illuminated by the fading light. "Carlos?" she called, her voice breaking, wavering between hope and fear. But there was no answer, only silence. Then a hushed rustle, a shift in the air, and she realized the truth. It hadn't been Carlos. It had been something worse, something that wanted her to believe in a lie. That voice floated back through the trees. Come to me. Sarah's instincts kicked in once more. She felt a terrible pressure building in her chest as she pushed onward, scrambling for the edge of the clearing. The moon shone brightly now, a cruel spotlight on the nightmare surrounding her, but just as she reached the edge, a shadow lunged from the side. She barely dodged it, panic igniting her every nerve. Teeth glinted under moonlight as the creature swept dangerously close, hot breath chasing her like a ghost, unlike anything she could have imagined. Stay away! She howled, her voice rising above the chaos, pure desperation fueling her flight. Then she stumbled, hitting the ground hard. Hands clawed at the forest floor, desperately trying to right herself as she felt a weight upon her closing in. Was it the creature? Was it the forest itself? Something pulled at her, dragging her backward into the arms of the night. She fought against it, summoning every ounce of strength as she screamed again. This time, the scream was for her life. And then light. A flickering light glimmered amongst the trees. Was it salvation? What if it was a trick? What if the forest wanted her to follow? She pushed against the ground, vision blurring with fear, uncertainty threatening to crush her. The thing in the shadows began to howl, and for a second, she was struck with doubt. Would she ever escape this hell? What awaited her beyond the trees? And did the darkness want her to uncover its secrets, or simply to add another soul to its collection? A jolt of terror surged through Sarah as she regained her footing, the shadows hungrily stretching toward her. Instinctively, she fell into a sprint once more, propelled not just by fear but a desperate will to survive. The light ahead pulsed in her peripheral vision, a beacon flickering like a dying heartbeat. She could feel the creature's breath, hot and fetid, hot on her neck, as if the darkness itself pursued her so much that it had taken form, becoming a living thing. She tore through the remnants of the forest, branches clawing at her like skeletal fingers, daring her to surrender to the night. "Focus!" she whispered, but the words felt weak in the face of horror closing in. Each footfall felt like an invocation of doom, resonating with the growls and howls that called her back. The light quivered more insistently, urging her forward. If it was a trap, it could not be worse than what she left behind. Suddenly, something shook the ground. Her lungs were on fire, yet she pressed onward, blindly drawn to the light. A voice, like honey and ashes, reached her ears, promising safety. "Sarah, come closer." No. She clenched her fists, fighting the pull. Vivid images of her friends swept over her mind again, laugh lines etched alongside memories that turned grotesque. Jason. Carlos. Mysterious figures blurred and morphed into something otherworldly, their faces twisting into expressions that promised betrayal. She stumbled into the clearing, heart racing as the pale glow danced over her skin. Light turned shadows into twisted shapes resembling arms reaching out, desperate and hungry. The light was not a sanctuary, it was a haunting. "Don't!" she yelled, her voice echoing through the air. It was all too much, the pressure at her throat, the breathless panic, the weight of inevitability. She felt raw and fragile, the night around her a relentless predator. The creature emerged from the thicket, muscles rippling under its dark coat, its predatory gaze pinning her down. Her body went cold, the stark realization crashing over her. The monster wasn't the only danger. The light pulsating ahead flickered violently, morphing until she could almost see the grinning specters of her lost friends surrounding it. "Help!" she screamed, and even in her despair, she felt the futility of the cry. The shadows danced closer. They would consume her either way. But, as the beast lunged, she suddenly felt a spark and instinct igniting from deep within her. It didn't belong to the creature or the forest. It belonged to her. The beast's maw opened wide, and she could see the void, an abyss filled with the promise of extraction, a twisted salvation for her soul. "Fight!" The word screamed in her mind. She turned and ran, darting past the flickering light that beckoned her. Vines and brambles clawed at her hellish tendrils that felt as if they were trying to skin her alive. And then she saw it, the path winding away, a flicker of hope through a wall of panic. It led deeper into the woods, where shadows swirled like smoke. Would it offer sanctuary, or was it simply another trap, another route into darkness? With the beast close behind, she plunged into the thick brush. The brush felt alive, twisting as if seeking to tether her to the earth. The howls grew louder, echoing through the void left by her friend's laughter, and the very air felt saturated with dread, vibrating with the chaos of the night. Then, just ahead, a glimmer shone through the foliage. What was it? A last desperate trick of the forest, or something real? Should Sarah dare to reach for it? Breathless, she hesitated, teetering on the edge of decision, heart pounding with weighty consequence. What awaited her beyond this fork? Would it be salvation, or a deeper descent into madness? And were the whispers she heard pulling her toward it a promise or a chant of a forgotten ritual? Dread coiled in her chest as she gained her footing, poised for whatever revelation lurked in the shadows ahead. The moment Sarah took a step toward the glimmer, the forest shuddered. A low growl reverberated around her, rattling her bones, the air thick with malice. The shadows twisted like snake tongues, darting towards the light, but the light itself flickered with a cruel stutter, mocking her hesitation. Her instincts screamed. She clutched a thorny branch, gripping it like a weapon, ready to defend herself against whatever lurked within the depths of the woods. The whispers grew louder, echoing her name, hissing and teasing, wrapping around her like a vine. Sarah! Come, you're not afraid, are you? The flickering light pulsed faster, almost blinding. Was it a way out, or a snare, waiting to trap her securely in its embrace? Don't listen, she mumbled to herself, her voice trembling. She had to escape this eerie lull that tried to ensnare her, but her feet felt glued to the ground. She glanced back. The creature was still pursuing her, muscles coiling under its fur, its features more defined in the light-esque glow as its eyes glimmered with hunger. Suddenly, from somewhere deep within the throbbing darkness, a shape distorted into focus. A tall figure, draped in shadow, stood frozen, watching her. Was it another human or something else entirely? Her mind raced with possibilities. Jason's face flickered into memory. He could be there, waiting, or he could just as easily be another soul lost to the night. Please, just run, she whispered urgently, as if conspiratorial with herself, but doubt gnawed at her insides. What if the figure was a friend lured into danger, just like the others? Cold sweat dotted her forehead as she battled the spiraling fear. But that fear melted into a stark clarity when she heard the beast behind her. A heavy crash, followed by an oppressive silence, sent ripples of panic through her chest. She didn't have time. Gritting her teeth, Sarah turned her focus back onto the light, forcing her feet to move. Each step toward that glimmer felt like walking a tightrope above a chasm. The air felt electric, buzzing with tension as shadows writhed around her. She thrust herself through the underbrush, praying the light would reveal salvation. But as she broke free, emerging into the dimly lit space ahead, the scene froze her in disbelief. The light didn't illuminate the path as she hoped. It revealed a circle of stones carved with symbols, each glowing with a sickly hue. In the center lay an altar draped with remnants of cloth, stained dark with the memories of those who'd been there before her. The creature halted, snorting as it stepped into the clearing, sniffing the air. Its gaze bore into hers, knowing. The whispers intensified, a chorus of haunting voices swirling from the altar, urging her to abandon reason. Join us, Sarah, embrace your destiny. Panic erupted inside her. No! She yelled, the word tearing from her throat like a battle cry. But the shadows twisted closer, fingers of darkness reaching for her. The weight of despair closed in. She felt it, the closeness of her fate, tethered to the shadows that hungered for a soul. With desperation on her side, she lunged toward the circle, her hand trembling, reaching. What should she do? As she grabbed a rock, the ground shook again, and the creature howled, furious. The very air grew thick with dread as shadows closed in from all sides, enveloping her in their dark embrace. The altar's glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, and she found herself caught in a choice: would she fight or surrender? The whispers sharpened into a single command. Do it, Sarah, or you'll become one of them. Rage surged through her. She pulled her arm back, poised to unleash the stone, But just before she could throw it, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the light a familiar silhouette. "I'm here, Sarah, you have to listen," but she couldn't tell if it was a savior or another puppet dancing on the strings of darkness. What tangled web had she stepped into? And would hope reveal itself, or would it become just another trap? "I don't have time for games." Sarah's voice rang out, raw with a mix of desperation and defiance. The figure remained still, the shadows wrapping around its edges, casting doubt on its intentions. "Sarah, you need to trust me," it pleaded. The voice sent a chill down her spine. It sounded eerily like Jason. But how could it be him? They had been separated for hours, possibly days. A memory whispered back a night just like this, full of secrets. "Something is here with you. You have to listen." Her heart raced, but the beast's growl shattered her moment of clarity. It lunged forward, its snout barely a breath away from her. She gripped the stone tight, her body instinctively preparing to hurl it at the approaching threat. The altar pulsed again, a sickening rhythm that thrummed in her bones. "No!" she shouted, swinging the rock at the creature. The connection was brief, the impact only a distraction, but it bought her a precious moment to think. Jason's silhouette shifted, his eyes glinting with urgent desperation. "The altar! You have to destroy it." "What?" The words slipped from her lips, thin as air. "Destroy the only thing glowing with life amidst this dark madness?" The whispers grew more insistent, wrapping around her like chains. "But it's the only light here." "No! That light is consuming everything. It lures, it traps. It's not what it seems." She hesitated, glancing from the altar to the creature, which was now pacing like a predator nurturing its next meal. The air throbbed with tension. The creature's eyes glowed with an unholy hunger, seeming to pulse in rhythm with the altar. "Fight it, Sarah! You're stronger than this darkness." Jason's voice echoed in her mind, rippling like the vibrations in the air. The whispers transformed into a sinister harmony, taunting her resolve. "Join us, Sarah, let the light guide you." She squeezed her eyes shut, pushing that tempting voice away. She needed to remember who she was. "I am not afraid!" she yelled, more to reassure herself than anything. With newfound clarity, Sarah lunged forward, not at the creature, but at the altar, driven by an adrenaline-fueled determination to obliterate the source of her torment. The stone flew through the air, a desperate prayer for liberation. As it collided with the altar, a violent shockwave erupted, casting fragments of the darkness backward. The symbols erupted in riotous colors, flickering between life and death, as if they were a heartbeat struggling for survival. The beast howled, recoiling from the backlash, but it was the echoes of the whispers that truly filled the air, a chorus of agony and pleasure intertwined, creating a cacophony that drowned out her thoughts. A moment of hopeful clarity pierced through the chaos. The whispers faded, and she caught a glimpse of Jason struggling against the dark edge of reality, fighting to solidify against the smudge of shadow. "Sarah! Now!" he roared, even as the shadows clung to his frame, refusing to release him. She lunged again, adrenaline blazing through her. "Jason!" But the darkness lashed out, shifting like a living creature, enveloping him. She could barely breathe as despair clawed at her heart. "Don't you dare give up!" he shouted, his voice becoming faint. With every ounce of strength, Sarah threw herself into the light, determined to wrest Jason from that malevolent grip, but the shadows twisted tightly, threatening to swallow her whole as well. "Together!" she screamed, reaching, grasping for him. But what if she couldn't break free? And then, a sudden, earth-shattering crack echoed in the clearing. Something deep beneath the altar erupted, sending shards of stone and shadow cascading in every direction. Sarah felt the ground shift unsteadily beneath her feet as a new dread unfolded. Was this the end, or merely the beginning? As she fought to pull Jason from the depths of that encroaching darkness, a new terror blossomed around them, something far worse than she could have imagined. "Sarah, we have to go!" he yelled, but she could barely think. The forest twisted, branches clawing and reaching like desperate hands. What had she awakened? What darkness lurked beneath the altar's glow? In that fleeting moment, obscured by shadows, Sarah's eyes widened as the realization hit her she may have unleashed something that couldn't be contained. A malicious force was stirring, rising from the ground itself, hungry to claim its lost dominion again. And as the fog thickened, enveloping them both in despair, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far more sinister. The ground convulsed beneath Sarah, a rumble that grew louder, reverberating through her very bones. The darkness writhed, shaping itself into serpentine forms that lunged, blurred edges slashing at the air around her. "Jason!" she screamed as her heart thumped in her chest like a frantic drum. She felt his presence being pulled further from her grasp, each jagged shadow reaching hungrily for him. She fought against the tide of despair, the haunting whispers creeping back, promising safety, warmth, and power. A false glow beckoned her away from the rising chaos. "No!" she gasped, jolting back to reality. The altar was crumbling under the weight of the eruption, ancient stones cracking open as dark energy poured from within. Shadows spilled like ink, staining the earth, slithering toward her. "Focus, Sarah!" Jason's voice sliced through the noise, desperation laced with courage. She looked at him, fighting against the shadows that clung to him like a second skin. I can't lose you!" The words tumbled out, panic dripping from her voice. But what if this pit of darkness had taken more than it was letting on? Before Jason could respond, claws of shadow lunged at her, just a breath away from sealing her fate. She ducked and felt the cold slickness of them sweep by, a rush of air so frigid it froze her thoughts. In a primal instinct, she grabbed another stone, thicker and heavier, its rough edges biting into her palm. "I'm not afraid!" she shouted again, trying to echo her own courage. She hurled the stone towards the wailing altar, aiming to break its hold on reality. The moment it hit, a sound like thunder cracked open the night, scattering wisps of shadow like dry leaves in a storm. For a brief second, the altar flickered, its glow oscillating between life and death. But then a surge of angry shadows rushed back, more ferocious, desperate to reclaim control. "Sarah, go!" Jason shouted as he struggled against the encroaching darkness. The weight of the shadows bore heavily on him, dragging him back like an anchor in a stormy sea. "I'll save you!" she cried out, her body responding with instinct as she dove forward, plunging through the thick fog. No longer just shadows, they transformed into frightening forms, faces she recognized, twisted and tormented versions of lost souls, their expressions locked in agony. They reached out with spectral hands, cold tendrils attempting to ensnare her and drag her into their depths. "Jason!" she screamed, fighting against the pull of despair. "Run! I'll find you!" he roared, a heart-wrenching plea that sent ice lancing through her veins. But something new twisted inside her rage. "You won't take him!" "Not now!" She rallied and surged forward, grasping desperately at the slivers of light piercing through the chaos. Suddenly, a flash of light exploded from the altar, a blinding burst that momentarily illuminated the horrid faces around her. In that instant of clarity, she saw glowing symbols, carved deep into the ancient stone, pulsing like a wounded heartbeat. She threw the second stone, watching it spiral like a comet through the chaos. The altar absorbed the impact and shattered, the symbols erupting in white-hot fury, sending waves of energy across the clearing. It felt as though time shattered alongside the stone, each heartbeat echoing with dread. "Sarah!" Jason's voice was sharper now, strained but holding on to a thread of life. But as the shadows screamed in defiance, a gaping maw opened beneath the earth, the ground splitting like a wound, a chasm to the unknown. "Go!" he bellowed, "before it consumes you too!" And Sarah, heart racing, body trembling, leapt toward him, but froze as the darkness surged again, pulling Jason below its depths. "Jason!" she cried, agony mixing with her breath. "Wait!" Suddenly, she was torn, a choice slamming into her: plunge after him into the void or turn and flee from the abyss that promised only despair. The voices rose to a shriek, wrapping around her like vines, begging her to join them, to accept the darkness. As the chasm shifted and swirled, she knew one thing for certain. What was left of Jason was disappearing into the shadows, and hope was becoming a cruel taunt. But if she broke free now, Would she ever find a way back? The edge trembled, uncertainty bordering on madness, each breath becoming heavy with dread. In that dividing moment, one choice began to rise in her mind: what if saving him meant becoming part of the darkness? How far would she go to bring him back? And just outside the chasm's edge, the weight of the unseen began to pull at her. The darkness loomed, swaying like a living entity eager to engulf her. Sarah felt the edges of her sanity fray, but amid the chaos, a flicker of clarity emerged. She couldn't abandon Jason. Not now, not ever. As he slipped deeper into the shadows, the horrors of the night crystallized in her heart: fear, despair, the whispers of betrayal. "Grab my hand!" Sarah shouted, stretching her own toward him, fingers trembling. His eyes locked onto hers, their connection pulsing through the air like electricity. "I'm blighted. It's too late for me." His voice was desperate, thick with the sorrow of souls lost. "No! It's never too late!" she yelled. With renewed determination, she lunged forward, her feet driven by an instinct far deeper than fear. Her hand reached out. "You'll have to fight. Please!" The maw of shadows seemed to screech like nails on a chalkboard, the darkness swirling with abandon as if resentful of their bond. But Jason's fear stormed beneath as he reached back, his fingertips brushing hers. His grip was slippery, dampened with shadow, but his resolve shone bright. The moment their grasp solidified, a wave of energy surged through them. "Together!" Sarah cried, feeling the heat of defiance blaze within her. And then, the ground beneath them erupted. Tendrils of darkness whipped toward them like serpents, but their bond became an incandescent light, illuminating the chasm around them. The darkness shrieked, a guttural protest that rattled her bones, trembling in the face of their unified will. "We're stronger together!" With that cry, she tugged Jason back against the oppressive pull, summoning every ounce of her spirit. The shadows convulsed, but she didn't yield. They spun against the tide, like two stars colliding amid a tempest. And then, as if born from their determination, a crackling barrier of light surged forth between them and the abyss, holding the malevolence at bay. Sarah positioned herself firmly, grounding herself as Jason grasped her waist. "Just hold on." All around, the forest raged in ecstasy, branches whipping and howls cascading through the night's veil. Shadows clawed at them with desperation, seeking to reclaim their lost treasure. But united in heart, Sarah and Jason surged forward, the light expanding, illuminating their path. "We're breaking free!" she yelled with triumph flooding her spirit. "We can do this!" Just like that, searing light erupted from the altar, washing over the gathering shadows and beckoning the remnants of their friends. The symbols faded from haunting to radiant, shimmering like lost stars being reclaimed. The chasm shrieked one last time, a screech that echoed with despair, as the darkness began to unravel, retreating into the depths of the earth that had tried to bind them. With one final push, Sarah and Jason broke through, a blinding aura surrounding them as they emerged into the clear night air, the forest suddenly still around them. Beneath them, the altar crumbled, its power dissipating like smoke in the wind while luminescent threads of light twisted and wove through the trees, illuminating the path to safety. They stumbled back, breathless, heart racing, tangled in the moment of survival. Sarah locked eyes with Jason, relief flooding between them. "We made it!" Her voice trembled, uncertain but overcome with the thrill of victory. Jason's smile was weak, but it felt like the sun after a relentless storm. "I thought I was lost." "No one is lost if you fight." The words left her lips before she could think, her voice anchored in strength. In the hours that followed, glimmers of dawn began to break over the horizon, colors swirling in the sky, washing away the umbrage of night. They made their way back to the ranger station, each step lighter, the air clear of shadows that had once consumed them. The cabin felt warm, the silence comforting. They found others had returned, weary and shaken yet alive. Reunited, they shared their harrowing tales, the bonds of friendship forged anew in the fires of darkness. As sunbeams broke through the trees, Sarah looked around at the faces of her fellow rangers, each with their own scars but also with hope rekindled. A profound resolve bloomed in her heart. Together they would honor those lost, hold fast to their memories, and protect what remained. She felt grateful. Never forget the rules, Sarah said softly, her heart aching for their past, but lighter for the future. But never let fear silence you. We choose to fight, every time. They nodded, their spirits intertwined in shared recognition, united against any darkness yet to come. And with that, as they stepped out into the light of dawn, they looked toward the horizon, ready for whatever the future may hold, and determined to face it together. No shadows would keep them apart again. This is your call to action. You need to subscribe now. Hit that button immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to help with the algorithm. Your support matters. Your reactions and theories about what just happened. Flood the comments section. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your loyalty keeps this channel alive,